Hello everyone and welcome to this Jason Live event. I'm Jessica Harrop and I'll be your host. We're coming to you live today from the Shed Aquarium's Family Day, which is part of the Coastal Zone 2011 conference in Chicago. And I'm here right now with the Director of Coastal America, Virginia Teddy, and the President of the Shed Aquarium, Ted Beatty. Now Virginia, tell us, what is Coastal America?
Well, Coastal America is a partnership to restore and protect the coastal and marine environment. And we essentially do that by integrating federal efforts with state, local, non-governmental efforts to accomplish those big tasks that no single organization can accomplish alone. And one of the most exciting initiatives that we have underway is our Coastal America Learning Center Network. And we're real excited to be here today at one of our premier learning centers in the country, the Shed Aquarium.
And Ted, can you tell us a little bit more about how the Shed Aquarium is related to Coastal America?
Well, first, thank you very much for having us. It's a real treat to be part of Jason and this whole program. We're one of 24 learning centers around the country, and we have two members that are one in Canada and one in Mexico. The network is extremely important to us, and it gives us an opportunity to reach out to new partners and new programs. So it's this week is one filled with lots of ideas.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting for us to be here too, so thank you so much for your hospitality. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We're actually really excited about our program today because we're going to be talking to science experts in climate change, pollution, and fisheries, as well as some students who are going to be working on those issues at a local level. If at any time you have any questions for anyone that I'm talking to, feel free to type them in along with your name and the state where you live in the window to the right. And right now, we're going to start off with a very special message from the renowned ocean explorer, Sylvia Earle. So take a look at this.
I'm Sylvia Earle. I'm an oceanographer, explorer in residence at the National Geographic. The ocean drives climate and weather, regulates temperature, absorbs much of the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and holds 97% of Earth's water. Even if you never have a chance to see or touch the ocean touches you with every breath you take, every drop of water you drink, every bite you consume. Everyone, everywhere, depends on the ocean. It's the blue heart of the planet. It's going to take everyone to help ensure that this blue heart survives for future generations. 90% of the fish that were common when I was a kid are now gone. Low oxygen zones, places where few fish can survive, have formed in many coastal areas, largely as a consequence of excess fertilizers and toxic chemicals flowing from upstream fields and backyards. Plastic debris now clogs many beaches, reefs, and even the open ocean. Many groups are working to help save the ocean and to take care of our coasts. There's so much that you can do to make a difference. I'd like to tell you about a really, truly effective partnership called Coastal America that brings together federal, state, and local governments, private corporations, conservation groups, and aquariums. Together, they're able to accomplish far more than any of them could on their own. Partnership projects restore degraded marshes, reduce polluted runoff, eliminate damaging invasive species, and remove obstacles to fish migrations. The aquariums and research centers that are such an important part of the Coastal America Learning Center Network are a terrific place to learn more about the serious issues facing our oceans and coasts, and to get involved in fixing the problems. Interactive exhibits and educational programs bring the latest scientific information to the public. Volunteer at one of the many learning centers, and you could find yourself spending time on a scientific research vessel, planting native marsh grasses, helping with a beach cleanup, or caring for rescued sea turtles. Coastal America also sponsors a nationwide art contest for students of all ages, whose winners have received recognition from the President. And high school students have a unique opportunity to make their voices heard, participating in the National Student Summit on the Ocean and Coasts, where they meet with policymakers from the upper levels of government. I can tell you firsthand, these are exciting events. The Coastal America partners want to help you create a brighter future for our ocean. Every one of us is needed to make sure that the ocean, the blue heart of our world, beats strong for now and for future generations. To get involved and make a difference, please visit a Coastal America Learning Center near you.
Now is absolutely the time for us to act to make sure we have healthy oceans and coasts. From pollution to habitat destruction, invasive species, climate change, and overfishing. These are recurrent themes every place around the world. There are opportunities to change the trajectory that we are on now. Learn about what's happening, get involved, do a project, be part of a solution, network with your friends, and figure out ways that we can use oceans without using them up. NOAA is a science, services, and stewardship agency. We provide scientific information to inform people's decisions, to enable, for example, better management of oceans and coasts. And we also have stewardship responsibility to make sure that our oceans and coasts are healthy. NOAA provides information about changes that are underway, and that includes climate changes. Our website, climate.gov, provides a wealth of information about what's happening different places on the planet and what you can do to help address climate change.
We know that climate change is a serious problem in our world. There's no disputing that. What we also know is that too few people are aware of the serious consequences of global climate change. That's why the Coastal America Learning Center Network is so important. At Mystic Aquarium, what we're doing as part of the network is to find ways to engage people in simple activities like beach cleanups, but also in more important things like learning about how the weather works, learning about the science of weather, learning about the science of the oceans from a very early age, from preschool through high school and then beyond. So the educational activities of the network are critical.
One of the primary goals of the National Weather Service is to make sure that we have a weather-ready nation. It's really about having the conversation with folks, with local communities, so they're able to know when a storm is coming to make sure they have plans and actions. We are seeing more extreme events. On April 27th, we had the Dixieland tornado event, which was in Alabama, and we saw devastating fatalities. It was terrible. Since the 1900s, the temperature on the globe has increased by 1.5 degrees. And folks say, what's 1.5 degrees? That's not very much, but it definitely is showing impacts right here in our own backyard. What can we as the National Weather Service do to make sure that we are protecting lives, property, because these events aren't going to get any less threatening.
So we're going to be talking a little bit about climate change, its effects, and what we can do to help. And I'm here right now with Margaret Davidson from NOAA and some students from Chicago who have been dealing with climate change at a local level. So Margaret, why don't we start with you? Would you mind telling us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Jessica, I work with NOAA at the Coastal Services Center, and part of what we do is work with regional and local governments to not only understand but anticipate weather and climate impacts and how they can better prepare themselves for and adapt to these events.
And so I think there's some confusion about climate change and whether it's happening, and what are some of the ways that we just know that it's happening?
Well, right now, at a time when we're experiencing extreme events, in fact, in all categories of natural disasters, on all continents, we're having a record-breaking year. We've already burned 4 times the acreage, forest lands that we ever have burned in any single year, and yet we're not even into the official fire season. We all know that we had one of the deadliest tornado seasons that we had had in quite some time. And one of the things that we've also seen is the patterns of tornadoes have shifted. And not only have they shifted to the east, but they're bigger storms and they're staying on the ground longer, and that's causing more devastation. And then, of course, up here in the upper Midwest, we've certainly seen a very wet year, both in terms of precipitation and now in terms of what winter snowmelt's doing to the upper Mississippi Basin as well as along the entire Mississippi River coast.
And so could you tell us a little bit about the ice cap and how that's going to...
Oh, well, and you know, often people are not sure why they should actually care about the Arctic or the Antarctica. That seems like really abstract to them when we talk about Greenland ice sheet melting or the Arctic ice disappearing. But these have important implications. First of all, the poles and the temperatures that they have are important regulators for the whole planet system, if you will. Plus, a lot of major marine species like whales actually migrate back and forth between the poles on an annual basis. But more importantly, things like the minimization of the sea ice that we see in the Northwest Passage, north of Canada and Alaska. Not only does this have implications for people who've lived along those shores for thousands of years, and implications for things like the polar bear, but there are also fascinating national security implications. If you can actually get through that Northwest Passage and move cargo year-round, which has never been the case, what does that mean for us in terms of not just transshipment of cargoes, but what does that mean for us in terms of national security? So there's a great deal of interest among many countries of the world in the changing Arctic and Antarctic ice conditions.
Yeah, and we actually have a live question that's come in for you from our web audience, from Melissa in Massachusetts. And she'd like to know, do you think the recent increase in extreme weather is a result of global climate change?
Well, now the scientists would tell you it's really a very hard thing to tie any particular extreme event to changes in long-term climate patterns. But what we can tell you, we're seeing a greater frequency and a greater severity of these extreme events, and that's very consistent with a lot of models that suggest that that's part of what we would actually see as part of climate change. Global weirding is a reality, and we all have seen a change in our weather patterns.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Margaret. We're actually going to meet our two students from Chicago, Zakia and Shaniqua, and they're here to tell us a little bit about what they've been doing in Chicago. And before that happens, we're going to see a video that some of their peers from the Coastal America Student Summit put together. So let's take a look at that.
The ocean is a major influence on weather and climate. Here in Maryland, this can be seen by sea level rise contributing to the loss of marshes of the Chesapeake Bay. Youth are a strong voice for environmental change, and through programs at the National Aquarium, we're making a difference. In the Aquarium on Wheels program, high school students participate in conservation activities and write and perform plays which are performed at schools and libraries to help communicate environmental issues to younger students.
I got involved with Aquarium on Wheels in my 9th grade year at high school. This is my first job, and I enjoy this place a lot.
And we actually go out to the children and perform our plays that we worked through over the wintertime. I do believe my efforts are making a difference because instead of going to adults, we're actually going to children, and that's the new generation, so maybe they can make a difference like me.
With the Student Summer Program, high school students from all over Maryland get a realistic look at aquarium careers and interpret aquatic environmental issues on site to visitors at the aquarium.
The goal is to get the word out and let people know that climate change is happening and there are things we can do to help prevent it.
Well, we use the Magic Planet Globe and we can show all sorts of events like hurricanes and sea level rise, and we talk to the visitors about climate change and the effects of it. And when you see here the Amazon River Basin, it's going to be completely flooded, and the reason that's a problem is we get so many of our natural resources there.
Students in both programs witness hands-on the effects of climate change and sea level rise on the Chesapeake Bay.
Marshes are valuable because they house 90% of living organisms in the bay, and they serve as temperature regulators.
A lot of Marylanders enjoy their crabs, and that's where they grow up in the marshes. It also filters the water. One of the major pollutants of the Chesapeake Bay is sediment, and the marshes filter out the water very efficiently.
In June 2011, they will plant a 2-acre area with around 35,000 grasses on Poplar Island, a troubled island in the bay, where the aquarium has been involved in restoration projects since 2005.
Visiting Poplar Island is a wonderful experience. We get to see a restoration island right before our eyes, and we can watch it grow and accumulate. Every year we visit there.
I think the plantings are going to be a lot of fun. I think they are going to be tiring work, but I am looking forward to them.
So that was a great video. It looks like they're doing a lot of good work at the National Aquarium. And while that video was playing, we actually got a text question for you guys, the students. And it's coming up now from Susie in Maryland. And she wants to know, can we do anything to help prevent climate change? So what have you guys been doing to help prevent climate change?
Well, we wanted to start a recycling club and get teens more aware of how recycling can help and how unplugging things can help after you're done with them.
Yeah, that's great. And you guys have been you have green days at your school and things like that. What has that been like?
It's like you getting teens aware to like turn off, not only teens but teachers too, to like be aware that green can like you can get energy and stuff from other ways than lights, and it's better to use like the light from anywhere and stuff. And
yeah, no, great. And do you guys have any questions for Margaret here?
Yeah, how long have you been involved with climate change?
Oh, actually, probably longer than you are old. I first actually got involved in natural disaster issues. I helped clean up after a couple of hurricanes on the Gulf of Mexico coast, and then in the early 80s, I got involved in the whole issue of what happens with rising water levels, rising sea levels, because of course the Great Lakes themselves are actually falling right now. But what happens to rising sea levels and wetlands and their productivity, as well as what happens to community infrastructure that's been designed for a lower water level, because every increase in water level increases the impact of any storm events.
Yeah, do you have another question?
How did you become interested in climate change?
Well, because there are these things that happen on these short-term cycles, like we see, like heat waves or big rainfall events. But I live on the coast, like you all do, except I actually live in South Carolina. And in fact, I live very low elevation, so just a little bit above sea level, right on the marsh, the wetlands. And so it's actually a personal issue, not just a professional issue for me. So I became very concerned about what is it that we as communities need to understand in order to plan more intelligently for where our communities are and how we design critical infrastructure in the face of changing weather patterns and rising water levels.
And Margaret, do you have any questions for the students here about what they've been doing, or?
Well, I think one of the most important things is you've been engaged with the Coastal America Ecosystem Learning Centers and the programs here at the Shed Aquarium. Has that impacted how you feel about science in your own work in high school? Are you more comfortable with science than you were, say, a few years ago, for instance?
Yeah, I have got more interested in science because at first I thought it was boring, and like when I got more informed of it and learned more stuff about it, I started really getting into it.
It started making me want to like get into more details about science and how to explain more things about it.
Well, it's just a very important thing for all of us to actually become more comfortable with what we think are scientific terms, because they're not really complex terms. Sometimes the rhetoric makes it all seem a little complicated, but these are things that affect our ways of life. And you guys are young, you're the future, so what you do really matters, and you can be exemplars in your community.
Yeah, no, that's really true, and thank you so much for being here. This has been a really great conversation. So.
Well, thank you, Jessica, for having us today.
Yeah, thank you. So now we actually have a question for you out there in the audience, and you can answer this question using the window that's going to pop up to the right of your screen. So here's the question. What would you do to reduce the effects of climate change? A, use public transportation. B, plant coastal grasses at a seashore. And C, raise awareness in your community. So let's see what you all out there have to say. We'll give you a little bit of time to think about it, so take your time and then put your answer in the screen. It looks like it's pretty even.
Yes, yes. And of course, part of the programs that the Shed Aquarium and other aquariums around the country have is actually part of that public awareness, as well as the very specific projects like these folks are undertaking.
Yeah, it seems like you guys would probably pick C, right? Raise awareness in your community. That's what you've been doing. But it looks like, yeah, and that's actually winning right now.
I think for many people that's one of the more accessible things to do. You can see how you can make that personal. I think public transportation, like, it's of course very important in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, those sorts of things. People have not yet begun to realize how inconvenient life may get to be. So, public transit is still something that makes you change your behavior patterns.
Yeah, yeah, No, for sure. So that might actually be what you would pick?
I would. If I lived in a city that had public transportation, I would pick public transportation.
So you would pick A, and you guys, you would probably pick C, you were saying?
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much what you've been doing, right?
Yeah.
Raising awareness in your community. Great. Well, thank you guys again. And now I actually earlier had time to talk to some people, young and old, about what they thought the state of the oceans were in. So let's take a look at what they had to say.
Coastal restoration is a really big subject. Here I am in Chicago, sitting in this glorious place. The river is running, Chicago River is running right along behind me here. The Lake Michigan is maybe a half a mile to my left. Just a great place. And so here we are in this great city, 3 million people, and very close by is just the great opportunities in Lake Michigan.
Do you worry about the oceans too?
Yes, I worry a lot about it because I like a lot of the sea animals, and I know that it's not really good for them when there's so much trash in the water.
Coastal issues aren't a single discipline that's taught in school. It's not a single science. It's not a single social science, whatever. It's a wide range of issues.
Yeah, so why is it important for us to care about the oceans?
You know, the wildlife in the oceans is something that you don't find everywhere, and they're beautiful creatures, and it'd be horrible for us to lose these guys for future generations.
Some people say, well, what does Iowa have to do with the Gulf of Mexico or the ocean anyway? And we say, well, about 200 million gallons every minute. The Mississippi River has a drainage from 31 states. What happens in Iowa, what happens in Nebraska, in Idaho, in West Virginia, that happens to the ocean. There's an enormous impact. One of the key factors is how much nutrient excess or runoff goes into our streams and rivers, and how much of that ends up in the Gulf of Mexico. These nutrients help our crops grow, but if they cause too much of an algal bloom, when that algae dies, that destroys or depletes the oxygen. So you have a hypoxic zone. And this hypoxia, sometimes called a dead zone, is an area where virtually nothing lives. The Gulf of Mexico hypoxic zone or dead zone is the largest in North America.
I think if we don't have an informed public that understands how the environment is so dramatically affected by pollution, we don't then have a better understanding and sensitivity to pollution in general. In Deepwater Horizon, a good deal of NOAA stepped up and became significant players. The biggest issue at the moment is what about in the deep water offshore, and what are those impacts? We're not completely sure yet. We're studying.
Going to be talking about pollution and ecosystem restoration, and I'm here with Jerry Shuba from the Aquarium of the Pacific and some students from Iowa who are going to talk about what they've been doing at a local level in their community. So Jerry, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at the Aquarium of the Pacific?
Well, I'm the president, so I probably do everything. Anything that needs to be done, I have to be willing to do.
Yeah. So what do you do in terms of pollution in the oceans?
Well, we have, like all of the other Coastal America Coastal Ecosystem Learning Centers, we have programs of outreach and public education. So we put national pollution problems in perspective. We also add then to those that are particularly relevant to Southern California. And in Southern California, we have what is called the urban ocean, with 20 million people living along a 300-mile stretch of coast. That's more people than in any state except Texas, 500,000 more than in the entire state of New York. And they make very intensive and varied uses on the ocean. And the challenge is to figure out ways for people and marine life to live in harmony.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And we actually have a text question that's come in for you from Anthony in Oregon, who wants to know, are there any programs working to clean up floating trash mats that I can support?
Yes, and it's not only true at our aquarium, but at every Coastal Ecosystem Learning Center, there are coastal cleanups, and I think all that people would have to do would be to contact their local aquarium. But then there are other efforts that we need to focus on where that trash comes from. Those come from inland sources. They get carried into rivers and streams and brought down then to the ocean. So I would encourage them to look to partner with upstream organizations, whether they're Boys and Girls Clubs, Girl Scout troops, Boy Scout troops, churches, schools, because if we can stop it at the source, we save a lot of money and we prevent a lot of harm.
So there's probably a lot of places people can go.
Oh, there are many places. And trash, while it's an important marine program, it is the one that is most amenable to a solution because it's a behavioral problem.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we actually have another text question for you from Heidi in New York. Are there plants that can be placed in dead zones that can replenish the oxygen?
Well, the problem is that plants also require some oxygen to function, and so it's hard to do that. And I think the first thing is we have to reduce the amount of nutrients that go into these zones that cause the dead zones in the first instance, and then if you can plant seagrass beds, maybe. But see, the problem is with dead zones are caused because they are too alive. You have too much phytoplankton growth. The phytoplankton then dies and it begins to consume the oxygen, and you have this cycle that produces these terrible dead zones.
Oh, great. And there's one more text question actually from Dave in Rhode Island. What can any one person who doesn't live near the ocean do to help?
Well, this is interesting because we know that no matter where you live, you affect the ocean, and no matter where you live, you affect the ocean. And so these two gentlemen to my left are from Dubuque, Iowa. And we know that what we put into our major river systems eventually makes its way to the coast. And when we look at the big problems of climate change, with ocean acidification, any of us who drive a car or burn fossil fuels, we're contributing. So no matter where you live, you can help make a healthier, more productive ocean.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's one big water cycle.
Yes.
And so this is Todd and Brian, and they are from Iowa. And do you guys have any questions that you could ask Jerry?
Well, no, I do not. We kind of discussed this beforehand, and quite honestly, I think he explained everything very well. He made the point that upstream sources are a huge part of our coasts and coastline oceans, and I think our project kind of shows that.
Yeah, so Todd and Brian actually did a project for the Student Summit, for Coastal America Student Summit, and we're actually going to take a look at the video that they put together for that summit. So let's look at it now.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian Fuchs with the Hempstead High School AP Chemistry class. We've teamed up with the National Mississippi River Museum and Aquarium to carry out our project for Dubuque, Iowa. The city of Dubuque is located right where the Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois borders meet. Our project is taking place about a mile southwest of the city, at the Dubuque Metropolitan Landfill. Here's an overhead shot of the landfill. We'll be conducting water testing on the stream here. This stream flows into Catfish Creek here. Catfish Creek is one of the main tributaries of the Mississippi River that runs through Dubuque. We have 3 testing sites. The first one, here, is above the landfill, to give us a baseline level of pollutants that may come from other sources. The second is located where the stream has entered the watershed of the landfill. And the third will be just before the stream enters Catfish Creek. Our goal is to see if precipitation running through the landfill is carrying any type of pollutant into our local waterways, as these will affect the Mississippi and, through that, the oceans. We've already begun collecting water samples, and thanks to Jim Rowling, the Hempstead Science Department, and the Mississippi River Museum, testing our samples are as simple as collecting some of the water in a vial, adding some chemicals, and using a spectrophotometer to give us an immediate readout of the substances we are testing for, which include magnesium, heavy metals, and nitrates. The results of our testing will go to the Iowa DNR and the Dubuque landfill. Based on the success of our project, the landfill may continue to have groups of students come for periodic testing, perhaps even setting up a permanent student laboratory on site. Our class is excited to be pioneers of such a great community-involving experience.
So what a great video, guys. I know, Jerry, you had a question for them about their project.
First, I wish we had some of that snow here in Chicago. But
Yeah.
Catfish Creek, a great project. Put Catfish Creekville in the Mississippi in some kind of a context for people. Why should we be concerned about it?
Well, so Catfish Creek is one of the tributaries to the Mississippi in Dubuque. It goes in, it covers basically the greater Dubuque area and then goes in south of Dubuque. Now, I mean, you have a good point there with the Mississippi. Like, in Dubuque, Iowa, we're just about as far from a coast as you can get. Last time I went to a coast, it was like 18 hours on a bus ride. So, why the Mississippi? Well, the Mississippi covers a lot of America. Todd, how much do you remember?
It's 31 states, I believe, and 2 Canadian provinces.
Which means it's probably over 50% of America like drains into the Mississippi. So we need to be aware of what's going into that water because eventually that's going to end up in the Gulf.
And so if you look at your project and if you look at all the non-point source pollutions distributed across half the continental U.S., going into the Mississippi, going downstream, causing this enormous dead zone,
right.
Put that in context of Deepwater Discovery, which was an event, very big event.
Well, so I guess the way to think of it is, so Deepwater Discovery was a very damaging event to the environment, but it was, like you said, just one event that happened over a rather small period of time when you compare it to the amount of time that we've been putting fertilizers and other pollutants down the Mississippi into the dead zone. I mean, it's going to take a while, but we'll recover from the oil spill. But I mean, with this dead zone, it's just been years and years of putting nutrients and things that don't belong in the water, like into the water. So might be years and years and years before we can get somewhere where it's back to normal again.
So do we need strategies then that look both at events and at these long-term issues?
Absolutely.
So do them in parallel, not in series.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys both just graduated from high school. You're off to college. And did participation in this project and with the Coastal America Center in Dubuque, the National Mississippi River Museum and Aquarium, did that influence your career choices?
Oh, most definitely. I'm going into chemical engineering, which I think it's going to provide the hands-on experience that this project gave me, along with being able to use some of my other talents. I'm hoping to go into environmental technologies after I'm done.
And how about you?
I'll be going into engineering physics out in Colorado, and I'm hoping to get into more of an energy sector in providing cleaner energies for the United States.
Good.
And I've actually got a text question for you guys. Okay. So Mary Campbell wants to know, what is the long-range effects of the Gulf oil spill on the shell fisheries along the Texas coast? So who wants to take that one?
One of you guys want to start, or want me to?
Well,
go ahead.
I think that this is better for you, Jerry, because our project focused in Dubuque, and as much as the oil spill,
like Texas.
Yeah, you know, I know the oil spill was a big thing, but I'm honestly not sure of its own extent.
Well, I guess my take on this is that the impacts of Deepwater Discovery, and it wasn't a spill, it was a blowout. A spill implies that you have a certain quantity of a liquid that after it's gone, it's over. And this was a blowout. If we hadn't successfully kept it, we would have continued to have oil going into the Gulf until that reservoir was depleted, which would have been years, decades, at least decades. So I think that great damage, they will recover. Whether it takes a few years or not, as long as we don't have another one of these events, they will recover. And nature is resilient if we can remove these kinds of incidents. And as they pointed out, that's the difference between an event and these persistent, pernicious insults of the ocean. And we have to deal with both of them.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's one more text question actually from Brandon in Maryland, who wants to know, can your project be duplicated at other high schools around the country? So what would you guys say about that?
Most definitely. If you lack the equipment to test the water yourself, I would say check out a local college of yours. I'm sure that they have a lab, or like I know we actually spent some time at the University of Dubuque, and they let us like look around their mass spectrometer, and I'm sure that you have labs, you have probably stations nearby that will allow you to work with their equipment, as long as you're careful, but it will allow you to work with their equipment and test the water if that's what you would like to do.
So you're going to go to Ohio State?
Iowa State.
Iowa State, sorry,
Yeah.
Iowa State. And you're going to go to Colorado School of Mines. When you get on campus, are you going to try to encourage classes or groups to begin to do these kinds of environmental projects?
Mm-hmm. I think my thing was I was going to try to bring a hands-on approach to chemistry to students, which would probably involve like high school students. I was going to try to start a program type deal there. Might be a while, but where they can get more involved hands-on chemistry, and one of them might be water testing type deal, so that they can know what's in their water.
And how about you?
There's actually a creek that people use quite frequently that goes down the middle of Golden, where my college is. So we could do some testing on what effects of maybe some of the farmland or what is coming out of the mountains because of the mining activity that happened around the town, and see if there's any effects on the water quality there.
So the Coastal America Student Ocean Summit really has affected these two young men.
It sounds like it really
and
has.
they're going to go on and affect other people.
Yeah, and we actually have one more text question for the students here from Mary in Massachusetts. What were the results of your testing of Catfish Creek? What recommendations did you make to the city?
Well, I just want you to know, when we tested, so the video said landfill stream testing, but that only says that because the stream went by the landfill. City of Dubuque has a great waste management program, and we didn't expect to find any irregularities. And as it was, we did have some trouble with our results. Things like some of our equipment was a little older. We're very inexperienced in lab work, so sometimes our things didn't come out, and sometimes we ended up without enough sample to perform some of our tests. But other than that, I mean, there weren't any real problems with the water itself. So you might ask, what was the point of our testing? Well, what we're hoping to do is continue this within at least the AP chemistry class for now. That's what we did it with, as a chemistry class. And the ultimate goal of this project is to actually get a testing center out at the landfill, one that students from all over Dubuque and other cities can come to and have hands-on water testing. And so they are aware of what's in the streams and what can be found in the streams.
Yeah, no, that sounds like your project was really awesome. So thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank
you.
It was
a great conversation.
Thanks for bringing us out to Chicago.
Yeah. And now we have another question for you out there. You can answer it using the poll window to the right. So here's the question. What would you do to reduce pollution and runoff in your area? Use only non-toxic chemicals in the home, use compost instead of chemical fertilizers in the garden, or participate in local cleanup efforts. So let's see what you all have to say. Take a few minutes, think about it, or a few seconds actually, think about it and tell us what you think. Looks like most people want to use compost so far. There's some local cleanup in there.
Actually, there was a question before about what type of thing we can do. Todd, do you remember the name of the cleanup that we did? What was the name of that organization? It was a coastal organization. I'm sorry, can't remember the name. But
it was a World Ocean Day cleanup.
Yeah, and
at the Devil's Lake up in Wisconsin, near the Wisconsin Dells, and we went around and picked up a ton of trash.
Yeah, you don't even need to What I'm thinking though is for the people out there, you don't even need to be near an ocean. You can actually sign up and register a group of people to go out and clean up, and it's just part of an effort on like World Ocean Day.
Or even do and adopt a highway. I mean, the stuff that gets thrown out on the highway will end up in creeks. I did a cleanup on Catfish Creek down near where it drains into the Mississippi, and we had a canoe and we paddled upstream, picked up quite a bit of trash, and then we reached this bridge, which was a fairly large highway, and there was twice as much trash there as anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, it looks like most people have been using compost instead of chemical fertilizers in the garden is what they would do to reduce pollution. It looks like most people used compost in the garden to reduce pollution. Sounds like you guys would have done local cleanup. And now we've got some more segments from people that I talked to earlier about their thoughts on the state of our oceans. So let's take a look at that now.
From a global perspective, the Great Lakes are one of the most important fresh surface water coastal systems that we have.
We had to do this thing where we had to make the trash from the beaches and make something out of it, like anything.
What did you make?
A sheep.
A sheep? What kind of sheep?
Just a regular sheep.
Whether it's recycling or planting trees or just caring about the fish, you don't need to be a certain age to be a leader. If you have a passion, you should go for it.
Do you ever worry about the state that our oceans are in?
Well, yeah, like the ice caps are sort of melting, and I sort of like the polar bears, and they're might go extinct, so.
Yeah, the Alaska Sea Life Center undertakes research to promote education and understanding and stewardship of the Alaska marine environment. So we have a very strong three-part program. We have a very strong science program that undertakes the core research on key species like Steller sea lions, harbour seals, sea otters and so on. And then in addition, we then promote understanding of that research through our visitor engagement. We have both a direct program where visitors come to the aquarium and walk through exhibits and really have a hands-on experience learning about what the work we do. But in addition to that, we also have a very active outreach program. For example, we go out and take our educators on the road each year into remote villages. Plus we also do distance learning programs around the world. Globally, the state of living marine resources is pretty depressing. We're seeing a really strong decline in a number of key indicators, including species diversity, habitat condition, and just a general change in the way that marine resources are coping with the changing climate around the planet.
There's a great concern to bring back our fisheries and to have healthy, sustainable fisheries and healthy and sustainable fishing communities and healthy, sustainable fishermen. No one group can do it alone. We need the private sector, we need environmental groups, we need school groups, we need the government. In many communities, there's efforts underway to restore salt marshes or oyster reefs, and they always need willing people who can put oyster bags out on a reef, plant seagrass, and I would encourage you to go out, get dirty, and start restoring the environment.
All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about protecting our living resources. And I'm here with Pat Montano of NOAA and some students from Seattle who have been working to protect their local shell fisheries. So Pat, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. I head up NOAA's Habitat Conservation Program, and we work with federal, state, local, and non-governmental partners to protect and restore coastal and marine environments. These environments, these habitats, are vital to support commercial fishing, recreational fishing, other living marine resources such as sea turtles and endangered and threatened salmon, and also provide communities with protection from storms and improved water quality.
So one problem with fisheries is that, you know, you take away the fisheries, you take away a lot of jobs. I know that that's something you've been talking about in this conference. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, the commercial and recreational fishing industry today supports $168 billion to the economy. And we're making significant progress on rebuilding stocks of fish that have been overfished in the past, and really have made tremendous progress in ending overfishing. So it is, there's tremendous opportunity through these efforts to increase jobs, to improve the quality of life in the economies of coastal communities. But taking measures to end overfishing is not sufficient in and of itself. Right now, over 84% of the seafood in the United States is imported. So we need to work internationally to make progress on getting scientifically sound management measures there. We also need to look at aquaculture and sustainable aquaculture to increase our seafood supply. And, you know, I said I'm in the habitat program, so, and we need to be looking at really protecting and restoring coral reefs, wetlands, seagrass beds, and other vital habitats that provide the nursery grounds, the foraging grounds, and the shelter for these fisheries resources.
Yeah, and I actually have a text question that's come in for you from Jack in Texas. He would like to know, what should I do if I see an invasive species?
So there are networks that are looking at invasive species through the states and federal partnerships that have rapid response capabilities in some cases that will go out there and study and try to eradicate if it's a new invasive species. But invasive species is a tremendous problem because once they take hold, they're very, very difficult to take care of. So therefore, programs that really take these early alerts are very critical.
Yeah, so people should definitely.
They should definitely report it, definitely to get something done, because if it can be tackled early, it can be solved.
Yeah, and we actually have another text question as well from Samuel in California, who wants to know, what can I do to help rebuild habitats?
So there's a lot of things you can do in your communities. There are many volunteer efforts, many partnership programs with states and with non-governmental organizations that are out there replanting seagrass beds, or cleaning up beaches, and are taking other actions to protect those areas. So there's tremendous opportunities to put your volunteer efforts in place.
Yeah, and so what should we, in terms of eating fish? You know, should we not eat certain fish?
So fish is in general a very healthy thing to do. So it's knowing what you're eating, and it's being an aware consumer. It's looking at the sources of the seafood, what seafood you're eating, and there are a number of places you can go to get information. Fishwatch.gov is one source of information, and there are many others as well.
So you should just carry around a little card.
You can carry around a card. You can go on the internet, and your Blackberries, I'm sure, can get it in a second.
Yeah, no, great. Well, we're actually going to meet now some students from Seattle who are here, Erica and Carissa, and they were also part of the Coastal America Student Summit. So we're going to take a look at a video that they put together about protecting their culture and their living resources in their area. So let's take a look at that now.
So our life is wrapped around the water. We've lived on the land that the water draws us. It's who we are. We're people of the water. We're all part of this web of life. Everything has a meaning, and the water is who Suquamish people are. We're people of the water.
I remember when I was a kid at Chico Creek, I used to live there, and I had to feed our family, so I'd go down there and we'd drag salmon home on a string just to feed us. Hopefully some of my grandkids and their grandkids will see some salmon. Everything that we eat is pretty much deteriorating. Slowly, but it's deteriorating.
It is kind of frightening to me. This is, one of our main sources of income. And beyond that, it's tradition, to me and my whole family. If we pollute this enough and the clams go, what are we going to do?
When I look at my fellow tribal members, I really realize how important it is to remember all the elders and what Suquamish stands for, because our ancestors died for this right. If it wasn't for them, me and all my fellow tribal members wouldn't be here tonight. And this is one of the days I'm proud to be Indian, to say the least.
We know what's going on. We know what the changes are. You know, us Indian tribes, we're here all the time. We don't go anywhere. We're on the water. We're on the beaches. We're harvesting, and we're gatherers of our resource. You know, and we want everybody. We want the shellfish growers to be there, to help us in this coalition of keeping the water clean, you know, and keeping our sound healthy, you know. But our sound is slowly dying right in front of our eyes.
What a great video, guys. It's really, really well done. What do you think, Pat?
No, I think that was amazing, and certainly the tribal people have been one of the largest advocates for protecting our natural resources and have been very vocal and active in that area. So it's great what you guys are doing.
What was it like for you guys to put that video together?
It was really eye-opening. I never knew anything about ocean acidification before this project, and it was pretty interesting. Like, once I knew it was about the ocean, I was like, oh, my people, that's where we come from. We come from clear water, and we live right there on the water, so a lot of our food is from the water. So I noticed that just our food was affected by all that, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and what sort of follow-up have you done since you made that movie? Have you done anything else?
We did oyster testing for, like, over at the same beach that was in the film. And the fisheries of our tribe is doing the shellfish growing, so they're raising shellfish right now.
So what did you find with ocean acidification and potential impacts to shellfish?
To shellfish, what is it called? It thins their shells, and we actually saw pictures of how much it changes in like 2 years, I think it was. And it pretty much, yeah, it goes to like nothing, to where they have nothing really to protect them. It's like not even considered a shell.
Wow. And I've actually got a text question for you guys from Joey in Washington. What is being done in the Puget Sound to help sustain the shellfish and fish populations? So, do you guys know anything?
I know that our fish...
You know Joey?
Yeah. Our fisheries department, they protect like how much shellfish is taken and how much of all the resources we use, so that there's still more. And they're testing to see how much ocean acidification affects our fish and all the sea life.
And also the water quality. I know there's a lot of efforts going on in Puget Sound to improve the water quality to help the seafood.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, thank you guys so much for being here. It sounds like you're doing really great work. So it's great. Thank you for sharing your video with us today. So now we're actually going to look towards the future with a very special message from Sylvia Earle and John Podesta. So let's take a look at that now.
There's a lot of bad news about what's happening to the ocean, but there's good news too. I think the best news is that now we know that there are problems, and we know what we can do as individuals to make a difference. This is the time as never before, because of the knowledge that exists, that now we can act. This as never before, because we can connect the dots and see how we can make a difference. If we wait much longer, some of the chances that you have, that we have right now, may slip away. This is the moment in time when you're really lucky to be around, because you have a magnified impact on everything that follows. We have a chance to leave the world better than we found it. And that's what each of us can do, using the power that each of us has. It doesn't matter what you're good at. Use that power. Can you sing? Can you write? Do you have a way with numbers? Are you good with art? Whatever it is, you have a chance to make a difference for the ocean, to take care of the ocean that takes care of us.
You know, one of the things I think that the Joint Ocean Commission initiative is really focused on is that it's going to really take everybody to come to the table, the private sector, government, state and local and tribal governments, as well as the federal government, but mostly it's going to take citizen participation, particularly young people, students coming together to try to both study the problem, look at its sources and causes, where we are seeing degradation, but also in developing the solutions of the future, the innovation, the ideas that will make our country a better place. So, you know, again, thanks to the teachers, but particularly thanks for the students for spending your time on this, for participating in this webcast, and for really getting serious about the ways in which you can make the country better. We need you, and I'm glad you're out there doing it.
So over the past hour, we've had the opportunity to talk to scientists, policymakers, and students, and really learn about how these three groups need to work together to make things happen. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that now with Eileen Sobek from the Department of the Interior, as well as Jerry and Ted are back with us as well. So Eileen, I want to start with you and ask you a little bit about the National Ocean Policy and what that is.
Well, as we've heard, all Americans love the beach. They love to fish, they love to swim. We depend on the ocean for jobs, for recreation, for all kinds of uses, but there are a lot of stressors in the ocean as well. We've talked about today climate change, pollution, water quality problems. Both the uses are increasing of the ocean, and there are potential conflicts, and the stressors are increasing as well. So a year ago, the President charged the federal government to come up with a national ocean strategy to help us guide our use of the ocean in the future in a way that's fair, that's equitable, that's wise, and that's based on science.
So what does that entail? What are you going to do to implement that policy?
Well, one thing we've been doing is traveling all around the country, talking to people, talking to young people, talking to stakeholders, people who use the ocean, talking to scientists, talking to people regionally about what's important to them, what they see the problems in the ocean as being, and what they see the solutions as being. We are going to be coming up with some strategic action plans on some of the major ocean issues, and we'll be sending those back out to the public and members of the scientific community to get their views on that. And hopefully, within the next few months, we will have a very detailed set of proposed actions that we're going to take in conjunction with all our stakeholders to hopefully guide our use of the ocean in the future.
And Jerry, so we've seen so many different messages from all these different people today. What's a good takeaway, do you think, from this conference?
Well, I think one would be that all of these are human-caused problems. We need to find and implement human solutions, and it will require involvement by hundreds of millions, maybe billions of people. And in the United States, at least, we should use this network of 24 coastal ecosystem learning centers, 22 in the US, 1 in Mexico, 1 in Canada, to involve people, to make them aware, make them understand, and get them involved in action.
And I've actually got a text question for Ted from Una and Veronica in Chicago. Okay. Where can we find out about trash cleanup along Lake Michigan, Chicago beaches?
Well, that's an easy one. I would encourage them to call the aquarium and just call for our education department and tell them what they're interested in. And we do a lot of beach cleanup with our staff and our volunteers here. And more recently, we've had a lot of companies, corporations, who have called us to do those kinds of projects along the lakeshore. The beaches here are very, very important to us, and people get very upset when the beaches are closed. And so we work with a lot of different groups to keep them clean.
Yeah, well, thank you all for being here. It's been a really great day, so I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having us.
You've been a very good moderator.
Thank you.
Tell everybody to visit their local aquarium.
Yeah, everyone should visit their local aquariums,
That's
exactly.
Right.
So sadly, that's all the time we've got. But thank you to everyone who submitted questions. They were really great. And if you want to watch a replay of this event, it'll soon be up at jason.org/live. And for more on Coastal America, you can go to coastalamerica.gov. So until the next Jason Live event, keep on exploring. Bye.
You did.
Great, well, thank you so much.
Really good job.